Welcome to our second episode of the MCC Cooking Show. I'm your host, Naomi DeWinter. I have the privilege of serving as the president of Muscatine Community College, and I'm joined today by Chef Steve Hall. He is the lead instructor for our culinary program that we've launched about a year or so ago. And we use the Button Factory in downtown Muscatine, that former site, as our culinary lab. So we have a really exciting show for you. I wish I could share with you these delicious smells that I'm experiencing. We're not only going to tell you a little bit about our culinary program and the students who are involved, how it's set up, how they get involved in community restaurants. We'll also teach you and show you how to make a dish that Steve has been explaining to me in a lot of detail. He wants to tell you about the origins of some of these ingredients. This is a dish that will feature at an upcoming fundraiser at the Merrill Hotel called MCC Legends, and that will be in the evening of April 10th. We'll tell you a little bit more about that too. But first I want to introduce you to Steve. And thank you for
Naomi.
joining us.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit, Steve, about what your plan is in showing us this dish.
Well, a lot of the classes that I teach, we start with the foundation of food and the history of food, where it came from, how it evolved, and as I've been doing this the last year or so, I've realized, I've learned some things in the last few years actually about some of the origins that I didn't know. And one thing that has become a big influence in my teaching when we describe a lot of the foods is that a lot of it is from South America and Latin America. When the Spaniards conquered Latin America and South America, they took a lot of these items back with them to Europe, and they flourished in Europe and then made their way back to the United States and the Western Hemisphere. And so for that reason, that was my inspiration for the Legends dinner that we're doing, that we're a part of, as well as this demonstration. I thought I would just show and explain what I've learned about a lot of these dishes.
Great. So. Oh, great. So back up just a second. That looks like it's warming up there beautifully.
It is.
And it has I see some red and some green in there.
Right, we have some spinach. We have quite a bit of spinach with some Parmesan cheese and ricotta cheese.
Yes,
we also have some roasted peppers.
Yep.
We basically take a pepper and you fry it. And after you fry it, then you shock it in cold water, and then you can peel it, and then it's nice and soft, and then you can utilize it back into a dish. And as you can see, that it gives it a nice color.
Right. I just found a jar of those in my pantry, actually, and I've been thinking about what to do with it.
Yes.
I don't know why I bought it. There was a purpose at one time, but it's escaped me now. But this may be something I can
definitely for stuffing pork, stuffing chicken, for sure.
Right.
And with the pork, we are going to do a chimichurri sauce. A chimichurri is kind of like your basil pesto that the Italians used, which is basically an herb and some oil and some nuts. Well, the chimichurri is parsley and cilantro with oil and vinegar and onions and chili flakes. So it's a very strong sauce, and it goes very well with meats. In Argentina, they use it on their steaks.
Oh,
so we are taking that chimichurri sauce, and we are using this sauce, which is from Peru, and it uses turmeric. And it also has, for a thickening agent, it uses bread and walnuts and a lot of shallots and a lot of chili paste. So it's basically called a Peruvian chili sauce, but it's a yellow. So
and
what
it's
I
spicy
thought,
or not spicy?
it is a little bit spicy. This turned out a little less spicy. The chimichurri is actually more spicy.
Oh, okay.
But it can be spicy, yes.
Okay.
And that's called an amarillo sauce, and amarillo is yellow in Spanish. So I thought, it'd be kind of nice to use two different sauces with the pork, and we'll kind of display a piece here in a little bit.
Okay.
So
Good.
I'm just warming this up a little bit,
Wonderful.
and just getting it tempered so it'll slice real easily.
So what piece of meat is that? I can see
it is a pork tenderloin.
Pork tenderloin.
It's basically about 12 inches long. And the easiest way to utilize it is to, just like a Pac-Man, we call it a Pac-Man cut, just go down the length of it and cut it, make an incision all the way down the length of it and open it up, and then make another incision within that meat and open it up again, so you have this nice rectangular piece of meat.
Okay.
And then you can use your filling, which, like I said, were some herbs, some spinach, some cheeses and roasted peppers. Then you can roll it back up and you can cook it in a casserole dish, actually, which I did, and it cooks slowly, a nice roast to it, and then it sets together very well.
Right, right.
The most important thing, a lot of people get impatient with the pork, is that after it's cooked, and any meat really, and you'll hear about it resting. You know, you have to take a piece of beef or pork and you let it set for a little bit, because what is happening is this muscle, this meat, this muscle mass, there's all this moisture inside of it, and it's cooking, and all this moisture is very, very hot. If you finish cooking and cut it right away, you're cutting this muscle, all that moisture goes out, releases itself. It looks bloody, but it's not really bloody. It's just the moisture within the meat. So it's always best to just let it set, and that's what I did with this. Once I let it set, then I could slice a couple of pieces, and then I could warm it up again.
Okay.
And then there's not a lot of juice, and people get a little concerned when they see this pinkish juice coming out, and you wonder what it is.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's always very important to rest.
It could be a dish that could be made in advance.
Yes, it is.
And then as you're ready to serve it to the guests, maybe warm it up quickly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, in a restaurant setting, we would cook these the day in advance even, or the morning of, and then let them rest, and then we would slice them and then maybe reheat them that way.
Okay.
And it's not really a reheat, it's just giving it a really nice, let me just get both sides.
Perfect. Yeah. So you mentioned the restaurant, Steve, and I think one of the great features of our program at MCC is our location.
Absolutely.
That Button Factory. So tell us about the program and the students that are enrolled in it now.
Well, you know, my history, when I started teaching for EICC at Scott Community College 15, 20 years ago, the students came to our restaurants because there was no culinary lab. So with them coming to our restaurant, we had access to everything, which was nice, but Scott Community College wasn't really represented as well as it could be. When they developed their lab, it kind of finalized everything, and they are complete. They're a complete setup at Scott. What is so nice about coming here is that we basically have just as ready of a lab as you can imagine, because we're talking real life restaurant. It's a real life restaurant. It has its positives, it has its negatives. It's not designed like a lab, it's designed as a kitchen, which actually for me works out great. You know, sometimes the water's gonna be hot, sometimes it's not. We gotta deal with these little things, we deal with them, you know, and it's really good for the students, especially the newer students that aren't maybe used to that restaurant setting. You know, the big coolers, the big dishwasher, the ovens, the stoves, all the equipment makes it nice. Sometimes though, they're packed in. If we have 8 or 10 or 12 students, they're kind of side by side like us making something, and that's kind of how it is in the real world. You don't get a whole table to yourself sometimes. And so with that being said, it's been really fulfilling for me teaching these students, because they are absorbing everything. And
now you have high school students?
We have high school students, yes, thank you. And we also have college students. We have a mix of both. And that works real well, because everyone gets along, but they all have their own they have their own strengths and weaknesses, even within the college students and within the high school students. So it makes it kind of fun. We team them up. I decided early on, especially having the high school students, that we wouldn't go all individual, but we'd always have teams of 2. It makes it a little bit easier to complete some tasks, because we can do more things that way. You know, we can do 5 different kinds of cookies, or 5 different kinds of stocks or sauces versus 2 or 3. So It goes a little fast and furious, but again, that's kind of how it is in the restaurant business.
Right,
So,
right.
and it shows them teamwork. And if something fails, they both fail. If something's a complete success, they're both, you know, as a team, successful.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're in our second semester of teaching this group that includes the high schoolers. We're teaching a baking class, which has been real interesting.
Yes, I was at the Button Factory last week. Actually, we did our first show there, and we had the students in the video class do a lot of the on-site videotaping, so that was a lot of fun. But I saw evidence of baking in the kitchen, so I knew what was going on there.
And what's really interesting is I cooked. I went to school and cooked for many, many years before I got really heavy into baking. So these students are witnessing something that a lot of people don't really get to witness right away, is a really good taste of the baking, the art of baking, and the fact that the discipline is so much more than it is in savory cooking.
Yes.
And to take these high school students and to utilize a discipline for following a recipe and making it work. And then, like, we made lemon meringue pie yesterday.
Oh, I love lemon
And lemon meringue pie is not an easy pie to make
Yes,
because you're making this custard.
Right.
You go from the custard, you have to make a meringue, you're making a pie dough. There's these 3 different ingredients that are very important. They all can mess up pretty easily. They did a great job. It looked beautiful. So.
I can't believe you didn't call me for that. I love lemon meringue.
We might see some of that this week.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So.
Yes. So the original connection for us was the Merrill Hotel, which when you started the program there really was, you know, just maybe they had broken ground, but it wasn't the building that we see today.
Correct.
So Andy McClellan came to us and asked us to really start this program and made that location possible. And so I know that you met recently with him and the head chef, Stuart. So tell us about the plans to kind of work with the Merrill, and I know we're at Geneva Country Club right now with our students. How do you see that?
Well, one thing that has been fairly exciting, in the Muscatine area, there are some restaurants and some access for students that are going to get a job and not only get their experience and a wage at that restaurant, but to earn apprenticeship hours and internship hours. And primarily, yes, the Merrill Hotel and the Geneva Country Club are our primary locations right now. I talk every day with Stuart Clark at the Merrill. Stuart comes from California. He's a real easy guy to talk to. He's been around. We talk the same language.
He was on our first show.
Exactly.
Actually. Yep.
And he understands the importance of labor and good experience and students that want to learn and learn in a working atmosphere. And what's really exciting about the Merrill is that there's going to be a lot of different functions going on. Not only are they going to have their full service restaurant, but they are going to have a lot of special events. Special events create a lot of different menus and a lot of different openings for people to learn even different things from a menu in a restaurant that is the same every day.
Yes.
You have the private events, and they might have quiche one day. They might have crepes. They might have prime rib. There's always going to be fluctuating, and that really helps the young student who's learning and prepping, because the prepping part of it is actually the most important. It's the foundation of a meal. I mean, you know, just like Thanksgiving dinner, how long does mom take to prepare that? And grandma, they take a long time. We eat it in 20 minutes, but they're preparing all day. Well, that's kind of how our business is. It's about the preparation and the correct preparation. And that's where these students are going to have a lot of input with the hotel. And what they're doing right now, interning at the country club, is that they are doing a lot of preparation. They might not be on the front line serving the guest right now, but that's okay. They are the it's the genesis. They start with, you know, they are cleaning mushrooms and making a mushroom stuffing and stuffing mushrooms, and that's going to be for an hors d'oeuvre for the country club. That's great. They might have to clean 400 mushrooms, and that's fine, you know. I mean, we all have to do that, and you learn to appreciate. where that stuffed mushroom came from,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yes.
Good. Let's get back to the
Sure.
dish that you have prepared for us today. And what should we know about the side dish? Looks
Okay.
like a beautiful colored salad.
Yes,
Some things I've not seen before.
Right. Well, you know, quinoa is starting to become a fairly big hit in the
Yes.
States, and it's not a grain, it's a protein. Well, it is a grain, but it's not a rice, it's not a
Okay.
pasta.
Yeah.
It's a protein,
Yeah.
and it comes in different colors. And quinoa, again, as with most of these food items, originates in Peru. And it's basically almost easier to cook than rice. You just do 2 to 1 broth to the quinoa. So I use 2 cups of quinoa, 4 cups of broth. Covered with, I put a little bit of oil in it, just a little bit, covered for 20 minutes, and it was done.
Wow.
And then you just kind of cool it down, or you can serve it right away.
So you used both the red and the
I
it's
use
called white?
both.
Or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, a red and a
Okay,
white,
that's
and
beautiful, yep.
there's even another color that's more of a brown color. So yeah, you can have a multicolored quinoa. And so this dish that we're going to serve is basically the using the quinoa as well as the purple potato. The purple potato, which now, I mean, you go to all Hy-Vees
Yep.
and a lot of stores, they have purple
Yep.
potatoes.
Yep.
We're just kind of getting used to the Yukon Gold potato. Well, now we're going to also get used to purple potatoes. And purple potatoes just have, what's really interesting with purple potatoes is you don't have to peel them. You just wash them, and you don't have to peel them because the skin is so tight on the potato that when you cook it, you don't even realize that there is a skin on the potato. Also, the fact that other than doing a gold potato or a red potato where when you cut into it, you can distinguish between the
Yes.
skin.
Yes.
You can't with the purple one.
okay,
So you just scrub them real well, and then you can cook with them.
Yeah.
And there's no peeling, you know, and that's one thing why some chefs don't like the peel, because it kind of literally peels off. Well, when you're trying to serve it, it doesn't look very good. But with the purple potato, you don't have that problem, which
Right.
is kind of a nice thing.
Yep.
So I made a salad, and it's going to accompany the pork.
Okay.
And it basically uses peas, just regular peas, the cooked quinoa, and the purple potatoes.
Okay.
The-
How about a dressing, or does it have its own flavor?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
The dressing actually uses an agave
Oh,
nectar.
yeah.
Now, I went to the store, and someone said, "You mean the guava nectar?" And I go, "No, not guava, agave." Agave is a plant, kind of like
cactus, or-
yes, kind of
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
cactus plant.
Yeah.
And agave nectar, I mean, you know, even there's drinks being made with
Yeah,
agave
yeah.
nectar. It's kind of like a big deal too.
Right, right.
And again, they use a lot of agave nectar. This is basically the honey or the sweetener in South America. This is
Okay.
what they use as a sweetener.
Yeah.
So I use that in the dressing, and it's basically oil and vinegar and olives. The olives kind of just give it a texture more than a flavor,
Okay.
and it gives it a little salty flavor. So with the nectar and the olives, then you have this combination.
Okay, yeah.
And,
Beautiful, yeah. So this is the dish that you
Yes.
and the students will be preparing for our Legends
Exactly.
event. Okay.
So I thought I would go ahead and top this pork here.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and
Okay, while you're doing that, I do want to mention our Legends event a little bit more.
Sure.
So April 10th, it will be at the Merrill Hotel, which by that time will have been open just for a couple of weeks. It is a fundraiser for the MCC Foundation and Alumni Association. And our idea is to feature the signature dishes of our area restaurants in kind of a grand salon style. So don't think of it as a sit-down dinner where you're just getting one thing served to you. You will have the opportunity to go to all of the restaurants who are featuring their signature dish and taste them, talk with the chef, talk with some of our students. And so it's a real experience. We are honoring for our first year's event the late Stan Howe and his wife Helen Howe for their contributions to Muscatine Community College. So it promises to be a really special event. We've had sponsors.
Yes.
In fact, when you were talking about the pork, it reminded me that Tyson Foods out in Columbus Junction was our very first corporate sponsor.
Right.
They're also donating the pork that we're going to be
exactly.
using.
And that's what another influence in doing this dish, obviously.
Right.
Yes.
So we're really tying in a lot of the local atmosphere, and I think it'll be a really special evening. If you're interested in joining us, please call me or call Lisa Weigel at the office here at the Muscatine campus.
Yes, and what's even though you don't really you're moving about when you're at the Legends event. The nice part of that is the advantage of that is you actually get, maybe you've been to some of the restaurants, even some of the restaurants locally, and you've always wanted to talk to the chef or to the owner of the restaurant or the proprietor, and you wouldn't be able to, but at this event you will be able to.
Yes.
I mean, I've been communicating with like the Yaki Shack. The Yaki Shack, they're great professionals.
I was just there for lunch yesterday.
And they know a lot about food.
Yes.
They already know what they're going to make, and they're real excited about it. And so these kind of locations, it makes it nice where you can actually talk to them instead of just going in, getting some food and leaving and not really knowing what's behind the scenes. You kind of get to see a little of the behind the scenes just by their table.
Yes.
And that's what's really nice. And the students, our students that night, will be helping all the other tables whereas needed. They will be helping if they need help with plating or help with cleaning up something or warming up something. So our students are very excited about this also, very excited. So. And it's kind of funny because they get out of class that day, but then they get to work on this all day.
They'll work harder probably that night than they would that day. Yes, Wow, that looks delicious. The flour is edible?
Yes, it's an edible flour, and this is something we're going to talk about. We're talking about in our intermediate foods class because we're doing salads right now. It's kind of getting into spring or almost. The weather's nice. So I'm in my the salads. We had done our soups. We had done. We're finishing sandwiches, and we're getting into salads. And none of our students have ever had edible flour. So I remember back when I was a younger cook, younger chef, there was just the thing happening. The baby vegetables and the edible flour. So so it just kind of gives it a nice little
beautiful, like a little tropical.
Exactly.
Color. Yes. Very nice.
It kind of just, there's it just shows you how many ingredients are involved to make a dish with two components. Those two components have like 19 different ingredients.
Now the rosemary and
these are just a lot of the herbs I wanted to show. We use a lot of fresh herbs. Rosemary, tarragon, fresh thyme. Again, the students, almost every recipe we do in savory cooking works with fresh herbs, and our students hadn't used fresh herbs very much. Now they're using it all the time, so it's good. It's good. And we have a really good relationship with the Hy-Vee. The Hy-Vee provides us, and they have a really good chef there, Tess, who I think helps make this all work out too, because I'll get some ingredients that maybe the Hy-Vee wouldn't have. It's a team effort for sure.
Well, I think we're at the end of our time, Chef, but I want to thank you so much for sharing with our viewers these beautiful dishes and telling us the story about our culinary program housed at the Button Factory downtown Muscatine, telling us a little bit about the origins of these beautiful foods. I can't wait to dig in. I want to thank you for joining us for our second MCC cooking show. Tune in for other topics coming up here during the spring. We may very well invite some of the chefs you mentioned to do the same thing for us and for you viewers. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.